Hi, I'm Luisa Harris. I'm an integrative counsellor and psychotherapist working with children, young people and families. I work with children aged 4 to 18 in my private practice and in local schools. I'm really interested in the topic we're going to discuss today, which is all about social media and its impact on adults, young people and families as well.
Hi, my name's Joyti. My background's in psychology, psychotherapy and yoga. I work with adults and I'm a trained integrative psychotherapist. My interest is in wellbeing, self-care and trying to prioritise a mindful moment for us. So I'm really interested in joining Luisa today for this podcast in relation to social media and maybe as adults how we can set boundaries, prioritise our space and our time with technology and how it impacts children and families as well.
So I am really interested in thinking about social media's impacts on young people and also what parents can do to help them be more boundaried at home with their child, how they can be a role model. I think we'll dive into things around that. Yeah, and just how we can make sure that this online world that the children are living in isn't their only world.
Yeah, I really agree. And I think it starts with that awareness of how adults are engaging with technology, using it, healthy boundaries, and even the emotional and the practical considerations as well.
Absolutely. And I think, as we talk through today, I think it'd be really helpful to think about what it's like as an adult using social media. And our generation was the first generation to be using social media and kind of what that's been like for us. And then obviously you'll be able to talk a bit more about kind of the adults you see and kind of what that's like for you. And yeah, I can obviously think a little bit more about the kind of child side and link it all up together as we think about parents and all those sorts of things. So yeah.
Perfect. And I think it's still reminding ourselves that social media is a wonderful, wonderful platform for connection, resources, learning. I mean, we engage with it so much, but it's considering the other parts of it, whereas we can be a bit more mindful of our use. I think in particular with adults, I've found it's more the boundary setting with usage and the emotional side, and then also the kind of boundary setting in a practical sense with our technology. So often during the pandemic and the COVID period, we were working remotely and it was our relationship with our laptop and our phones and being able to switch off and just have that separation, because otherwise it's kind of all encompassing. But we can chat about that and the uses. Really often it's so easy to just scroll and it provides so much relief or avoidance in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same with kids, isn't it? They use it as an, I think you just said there about kind of avoidance or escapism, is that the word? Through, around what's really going on for them. I think you mentioned the pandemic there, didn't you? And that's exactly the same for children. Like, obviously worlds were turned upside down and they were at home more, parents still had to work, all those sorts of things. So social media became sometimes their only kind of source of like real connection that day. But I guess that's the debate. It's like, how much is that online connection providing them compared to going out, playing with their peers, all of those things as well. So yeah, definitely tough on both sides.
Yeah, and I guess it's that modelling behaviours, the role modelling, or even prior to that, it's the awareness. The awareness that we're just so readily, we use our phones for absolutely everything, whether it's resource, connection, and how we can actually be more mindful with it as adults and then share that with our wider family as well.
I don't know about you, but my social media use is, it varies.
Yeah.
Like I can absolutely doom scroll. Yeah, I will hold my hands up to that, but I can doom scroll. But I think what I've got that maybe some other adults, and maybe you can talk more about this, is I have that awareness of like, I am doom scrolling, or I'm looking at something that isn't making me feel good, or why did I post that picture? Or why did I change that picture 10 times before I actually posted it? It's that awareness, and I'm not sure how much people like have of that.
Yeah.
And then how much like awareness parents have of their children as well. But maybe let's think about us and adults to begin with, and then we'll flip over.
Yeah, I agree. And I think related to that, awareness is also the varying amounts of the varied platforms, because I feel like there's a different purpose for each. You've got LinkedIn where it's a bit different, Instagram's a bit different, TikTok. And I think the wealth you know, it's the kind of the depth and the breadth of content within each, and the style of content you get. And I guess there's a lot of research in the dopamine effect, that reward pathway, and it's so interesting. And I think that that's what I think I kind of struggle with as an adult, is the varying amounts of social media platforms, and keeping up with them, and the engagement, but also find them all very, very useful in their own senses. So that's me as an adult, and trying to compartmentalize. And I guess we're working with, you know, adults, children, families, young people who are also immersed as well. So I agree, we've got that self-awareness, but how's that something, and how can we chat about that, I think.
What's your thoughts on, like, I'm interested because I obviously don't work with adults, so I know, like, from my personal experience, kind of how I find things like, what am I looking for online? How am I looking for, you know, what do likes mean? What do validation mean? Like, all those sorts of things. I mean, what's your, like, take on that?
Yeah, a few things kind of came to mind, really. I think there's the whole social media feedback loop and the kind of digital escapism. There's this feedback, you know, we're constantly, the algorithm that's created for us. So we look at one thing and then it comes back. And often if it's content that maybe isn't the most, you know, positive or reinforcing or whatever it might be, it can actually create as this spiral of seeing things that don't align. It's because of the algorithm remembering, showing us things. I think we're managing so many different, you know, lots of plates spinning, and sometimes the element of digital escapism, we can just go onto our phone and scroll. But you know, this algorithm that's curated for us based upon our you know, our previous interests.
Yeah.
I wonder if it becomes a bit of a filter bubble, and it's like that's the only thing we're seeing, and then. Yeah. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, you know, we all have, you know, if we think about TikTok, we call it like book talk, wedding talk, whatever. And that is essentially like the algorithm. You know, I know when I was getting married, all I would see was wedding stuff. And then just because I was looking at a bookshop the other day when I went away, now it's all book talk and like things like that. And, you know, when I'm really thinking about the young people, I don't know if you saw, there was a programme about phone-free schools. It was done by Matt Willis, who was busted, and his wife Emma. They were learning about, they actually went on to, I think it was TikTok, and they made themselves into like a 13-year-old girl or something, like fake put in details, showing everyone how easy it was just to get an account, but also seeing what comes up on the algorithm. And the stuff that they were being shown was so alarming because of the algorithm. So they're thinking like 13-year-old, and they were being shown to, you know, perfect bodies. It was quite sexualized behaviors. There was so much stuff on there that just because maybe a young person clicked once because they were like a little bit interested to see what that was, or maybe they did click on like someone with a perfect body, but it was just a one-time thing. It's then it's flooding, isn't it, into them?
Yeah. And again, that dopamine effect. And I think that relates a lot to that impact of reinforcement again then. So with as an adult, we post something, and I think it's, you know, we're looking at the likes, we're looking at how many people have seen it, and I think especially as us with professional accounts as well, I think when it's that element of people are seeing it, you know, we're really passionate about what we do, and I think even in that sense, if it's personal, professional, you can get into this cycle of, you know, the reward pathways, and is it liked? Are people seeing it? Is it this? And I think then it's that feedback loop, and I think that is probably very relevant for the young people as well as adults.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, young people look for that validation probably more so than adults do in some ways. I mean, they say as you get older, you care less about what other people think. And I think, you know, if I think back to like teenage me with, it was Facebook at the time really, wasn't it? And MySpace. And then a bit of Instagram probably kicked in as well, late teens, I'm trying to remember now. I would have cared so much more about like the likes and everything then. Don't get me wrong, it's obviously nice when you get people liking your photo, you get a few comments. Everyone's going to enjoy that. But as a young person, you know, I remember like probably myself, but also like friends, you know, like taking something down, like that didn't get 500 likes or whatever. So like I need to take that down and really needing that validation. Whereas nowadays, I guess it's a little bit more, well, for me, I'm trying to like, I've almost got like my Instagram in my head right now, and like it's less of like me posing now, whereas as a teen, like that would have been more what I was looking for, like pictures of me, say I look nice, all those things. Whereas now it's a little bit more kind of, look at this town I went to, or look at these mountains I climbed, or, you know, look at this really cool thing my dog's done, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's a little bit less about, we're still looking for that validation. Of course we are. Look at my life, look how great it is. You know, which is obviously, we know that's not exactly what it's like, but I think for young people, like they need that validation so much. And I don't think they don't get it as much in other ways, and they're relying on that social media for it. There's a whole load of reasons why that could be. But there's something about social media and young people at the moment that it's just got them so hooked in that they need to have the likes, the comments, be the popular person, have the 100 Snapchats in the morning when they wake up, that makes them feel liked, wanted, validated. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. That validation sort of hit, and then I guess that's the positive, that reward, we're feeling happy. But then you've got the other side of it where it can spiral. And it's being mindful of that, and I think one thing that I've been quite interested with in my work with adults is the difference between self-esteem and self-compassion. So self-esteem is sometimes based upon our external reinforcement, things we're doing, whereas that self-compassion is very intrinsic, and it's very much like, you know, I'll be okay even if. And I think it's that compassionate approach, and I've really noticed how the two can work quite differently. So yeah, I wonder if there's something about, you know, initially it's our self-esteem, external based, and now as we're getting older, it's a bit more mindful of the self-compassion and being our best friend first. And that's a lot of the work that I do, that I'm really interested in. But not to say it's not it's not something that doesn't affect adults, because what I've found is there's this whole real versus real thing. So you've got the real curated, you know, beautiful kind of aesthetic everything, whether it's a home account, whether it's fitness, whether it's beauty, and it's really easy to feel like, you know, I need to be in that. But then, is it real?
Yes.
But then there's that new app, isn't there, called the Be Real?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I think that's the whole point.
That is the whole point. Yeah.
Is to be real in the moment. I was like, well, I don't personally know about it.
I used to use it.
Okay.
So the idea of it is, I got rid of it a long time ago now, but the idea of it is that you have a certain amount of time to post what you're doing right then, otherwise it passes.
Right.
So you might be at a party, or you might be just doing your food shop or whatever. But the idea is like timer goes off for everyone in that day.
Wow.
And it's like, post what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, is a bit strange.
Yeah.
like again, like, why do we need to, even though like that is showing real life.
Yeah.
Because I'd literally be like, I'm in my bathroom cleaning or whatever. But like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why did we do that? Like, why?
Yeah.
Even though we're trying to show real, which is a good thing, why do I need to tell everyone that I'm cleaning my bathroom? And why do I need to make sure that the picture's like a little bit funny so a few friends like it? Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, I wonder if it comes down to this performative stuff. So I know there's a whole thing of like performative wellness, and us, you know, having to create these beautiful, healthy lives, and it's like eating, you know, all this like beautiful food, and it's all healthy and nutritious, and we're doing our yoga and Pilates, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and this, and I do feel like there is a lot of pressure, this wellness, and as much as I'm really, really involved in it in my yoga practice, but one thing I am very, very big on as a practitioner as well is, again, being kind to myself, knowing my boundaries, being that again, the compassion is where it comes in. It's like, you know, I need a day where I just recharge. And again, it's just being kind to myself. But I think I can imagine without that self-compassion and kindness, it can be quite performative and things we have to do. And I think now, getting older, it's very much like, no, that's not for me. And that's something that I run in my workshops, is actually do the things that you enjoy, not because it's the thing that everybody else is doing. I remember I used to think like, oh, I need to get be part of a running club because it's,
everyone's running.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't actually like running.
Yeah.
And then, I really need to do this because it's the in thing, but it just doesn't resonate. And I think it takes a lot to be authentic.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the journey or the transition is from that kind of performative feeling like we need to be part of it, or kind of being a bit more ourselves, but then again holding that space for ourselves with a bit of compassion. So it's really tricky, because I saw this other post and it said something like, well, do you know like 20 people in real life who would say, oh, I really like your outfit, but we expect like nearly 100 likes online?
And the rest.
So it's like, I get it. It's like in real life, we probably wouldn't encounter that, but online we have an expectation for this validation, for these likes, X amount of numbers. Because now I think on Instagram and stuff, you can see who's viewed it, the number of
views. Yeah.
So you're like, oh, it's not on the algorithm, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So this, validation stuff is...
I mean, I was thinking about that performative side, and it was just making me think, like, I think particularly for young people at the moment, but for adults as well, when are we ever actually then able to just be like authentic? Because if we think about a young person, they're either at school where they might be performing as a certain person, being that person, being whatever they want their friends to see them as, they might be masking something, whatever's kind of going on. You've got that pressure there to be socially acceptable or liked or popular, whatever it might be, holding a couple of teenage girls in my mind that I work with as I say that. But then also when they come home, they're not just coming home to their family anymore, they're coming home to their phone. I work with young people that they say like they wake up to like 100 Snapchat messages and they have to like listen to them all and read them all. And I'm like, what is possibly on there? But like they then have to reply, they then have to perform, they then have to think it's all hilarious. Like, when can they ever just be? And even if they say like, I think it's probably easier as an adult, I don't know about you, but I have some days where I'm like, those WhatsApps can wait till tomorrow. And that might just be because I'm working late with a client or I'm tired or something, whatever. Don't even need an excuse, but sometimes I'm like, it can wait till tomorrow. Whereas I think as a young person, again, just click, like, we hear of like young people that are leaving their phone on loud at night so that they get the notifications. Why? What? Like, who is even messaging you at 2 a.m? Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, what is that all about? Why do you have to respond straight away? Why do you have to make sure you're in it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, and that was one of the sort of things I've thought about for a recommendation for later is actually the physical distance as adults, putting our laptop away in the bag and away, or having our phone and not having it on our bedside table, having it elsewhere. So we've not got that, I'll just pick up and I can't go to sleep, so I'll just scroll TikTok. And it's breaking that automatic cycle. Yeah. So I wonder if that's something there for young people, is the noticing. So in my practice in solution focus, it's often the solution doesn't relate to the problem.
Yes.
So we look at times when things are going the way that you want them to. So often it's noticing when things are going better. So I wonder if there's something about noticing when, interaction with the phone is less, when there's not that need for validation, or I need to be online and I can disconnect to connect, all this sort of stuff. It's noticing when we feel most authentic. So it's, I guess, having those conversations, and I wonder, noticing our points that make us feel uncomfortable. So for example, are there certain accounts that we just
don't make us feel good?
Yeah, exactly. Are there certain social media platforms that maybe we just don't really resonate with? And I think they're varied, whether it's professional, more of a LinkedIn, or whether it's TikTok. I do like TikTok because it's very much like the doom scrolling. You can just, I need to learn a cleaning hack or something. Like, it's just so disconnected. And I think that's what I look for now in content. Is
mindless fun.
Yeah, exactly.
What trick is that dog doing?
Yeah.
What's that nice pace that they stayed in? It's not important stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a thing, maybe it differs, or maybe it's similar to what you shared about young people, but it's the posting the best bits of your life.
But does that not come from a place of, again, needing that validation, needing the likes, but also like insecurity? Like, you know, is it, I guess I see it more in those children that I think are more insecure. Yeah. They're the ones that are reaching for the phone more, trying to kind of live up to the standards that are shown online. And I don't just mean physically, I mean how they act, what they wear, what they think's funny, what they're interested in. Like, surely that comes from a place of like not feeling okay in themselves. I mean, I guess that would probably what it would be for me, but I don't know if you see that in adults.
Yeah, and I guess even prior to that is the awareness as well of knowing, right, is social media having a subconscious or unconscious impact on me? Because it's so integrated into our lives that do we actually take a step back? And I think what's really got me thinking about it is more our relationship with tech in general. So when I've worked with adults, in particularly my specialism is like workplace counselling, employee assistance programs, and often it's boundaries with our laptop and our emails because, again, performative. We need to be super efficient, get our emails done, be online. There's this pressure to, again, be online, whether it's for a work. And I wonder if then that is a modelled behaviour in the home or in other dynamics where, oh, I need to just respond to this email at the dinner table, or I really need to do this. And then equally there's that urgency for Snapchat and other social media for young people.
I mean, it's, you know, we know that we learn for the behaviour that we see around us. So, you know, young people will download something because their friends have got it, or, you know, it goes through phases. Like we said, it used to be MySpace, then it was Facebook, and it was just like we follow the trends. So there is that young people influencing each other aspect. But then, you know, think a little bit about that kind of role model aspect with parents. You know, even as adults, like, it's actually quite interesting that we're sat here saying this because we both use social media for our business. So, you know, I will sometimes even say to my husband, you know, I don't have children, but I might say to my husband, like, I'm not actually like just on my phone scrolling, I actually am doing something for work to like almost justify it. But I'm thinking like, you know, one day when hopefully I do have children, they're going to see that. They're going to see that and they don't know that I'm actually working. They're just going to see Instagram and that's what's happening. And that's so part of like a lot of adults' work now is everything's on your phone, emails, calls, texts, social media, Google Docs, whatever it might be. It's all on your phone now. So if all children are seeing is a parent on their phone, that is their role model. That is the behaviour that they're seeing, and that is what their parents are being as a role model. And that's not to shame any parents or anything like that, but it comes back down to that awareness. Yeah. Aware that actually you're doing it. I mean, your child can see that. It's really hard.
It is. It really is. And I wonder if during the pandemic period, the remote working, it made it better or worse in terms of boundary setting. And that's the thing that I'm really, really a champion for is, you know, keeping things within the timescales and of okay, this is work time. And I wonder if then diary management or again, maybe non-digital diary management or something where this is my time, phone-free time or detox time, but being more mindful of our interaction with tech and devices. But one thing I have found really, really useful is limiting the notifications on things. So especially WhatsApp. I have a lot of archived chats and then I choose when I see them. So then a lot of the big group chats that I'm in, I'm like, oh, I can come back to that later, and there's not that urgency effect. I have no notifications, I think, for emails, unless like work ones that are urgent. And I think it's prioritising what we need to see imminently. So maybe that notification management is good. And what you mentioned about the young people having the phone on loud, I mean, again, that sounds intentional. Because they need to hear it. So, but I guess as we were saying, it's that awareness of the why.
And I guess as well, like if you think for a young person, like leaving their phone on loud is an intentional thing they do because they want to be part of everything and they don't want to miss anything, because then they get FOMO because they're worried about missing out. And then what does that mean for them? But also, like, they might even have their parents saying to them, like, make sure you keep your phone on loud in case they need to contact you, which is an absolutely okay thing to do. Yeah. But what that goes into your mind is like, my phone has to be on loud all the time, you know? I was just thinking about what you were saying about the times that you might be on your phone and all those sorts of things. And just going to like think about it from a parent and child like interaction a little bit, if that's okay, is a parent that is like on their phone for work. Again, it's not to like shame anyone, but what is, you're being a role model on the from the social media aspect, but also what are you telling your child? So your child might be talking to you about the school day and you're just you're not actually listening, and that tells that child that what they're trying to say is less important than what's on your phone. And children do recognise this. I hear this a lot. Mum's always on her phone. Dad's always on their phone. They don't listen to me. They're on their phone. They're always working. They're on their phone. And parents have to work. Which again, we can't, you know, sometimes there's no way around that. But you said about boundaries and time. So like, you know, I'm thinking about, there's nothing wrong with saying to your child, like, just give me 2 minutes. I'd love to hear about that thing that happened at school today. Mummy's really got to quickly answer this really urgent email, and then you'll be all mine. And then actually give them that time. Not give them that time while you start looking at another email. You know, children have to learn to wait. They have to learn to do those things. But the emotional availability that you're going to give your child by looking at your phone is so minimal. And if you can't not be on your phone for something to do with work, place those small boundaries. I'll do this now, then we'll do that. Do this now, and then we'll do that. Or like, I can spend like 5 minutes with you, let's talk about your day, and then I have to get back on my phone and do some work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think those are exactly the same things I'd relate with adults too. That disconnecting to connecting, putting your phone out. There's that quote, put your phone down and pick your life up, you know, and things like that. And I really agree that kind of having those boundaries where you're fully immersed in that moment. And I guess it comes down to that mindful moment where you are, I'm here, I'm present, I'm listening, you know, tech is away. And yeah, setting those boundaries and that role modelling. And I think as an adult, it's doing that for yourself first and then for your family.
What you were saying there about kind of doing it for yourself and then for your family, it really makes me think of like double standards in a way, because, you know, how often do we hear like parents saying like, no phones in your room, or no phones at dinner table, or you can't be on your phone for longer than X amount of time. But then what about when, you know, let's say you say no phones at a dinner table, okay, and your child then listens to those rules, you then sit down for dinner and bring your phone, and you might, you know, flip it, but it's there. How is that setting the same boundary for your child? You know, you need to be setting the same boundaries for yourself as you send for your child. And yes, you're the parent, they're the child. But also, like, if you want to role model that behaviour, you have to be doing it yourself. You have to be saying, look, mummy has time where she doesn't put her phone away, or dad has time when we don't put our phone away. Because, you know, otherwise it's saying there's one rule for you and one rule for me. And you know, how does that a child's going to be like, well, what's the point? You know, explain to your child, like, it does affect our brains. It does make us more anxious. It does do this. It does do that. You know, explain those things to them and say, and that is why we don't have phones at dinner time. Or that is why I'd prefer for you not to have your phone in your room, or whatever it might be. But it's about doing the same thing, which is hard. Yeah. You know, we all find it hard to put our phones away. And whether you're a teenager or an adult, I remember like back in my teenage days, like studying and being like, just wanting to like be on my phone all the time. That I used to have to say to my mum, put it in a kitchen drawer and do not let me come and get it until I've done my work. And if I used to come down, she'd be like, nope. and I'd have to go back up again. And I got it out in like little breaks, because I don't know about you, but I'll do it now. Like if it's there, you're just like, oh, let's just see, like, oh, someone's shared me in a little thing or whatever. And, you know, but I guess if you can put, you know, if we use that example of like a teenager studying, if you can show as a parent that while you're working, you put your personal phone to one side, or whatever, when you're spending time as a family playing games, like you put your phone to one side. If you can model that, your child is more likely to follow the rules that you set. because they can see their parents are doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's very much about that whole practical, embodied approach of what we're doing in the home environment. And I think something came to mind that you mentioned before, that the FOMO. Online, I've heard of the opposite of that. It's called like the JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Oh.
And I thought, wow, it's brilliant, because if you're doing mindful activities, maybe replacing the phone for being outdoors, or doing something creative or really wholesome, learning a new hobby, a skill, you'll feel quite empowered and joyful anyway. That it's like, oh, I don't really want to be scrolling. So I think it's like, how can we reduce the FOMO by doing things that are bringing us more into the present? So that whole disconnecting to connect with ourselves. And that's something that I share a lot. It's like more mindfulness practice. So going out and spotting everything that you can see that's green, or really looking at a flower outside and admiring its beauty. And it's the little things, it's the noticing.
Yeah.
So I guess it's trying to make the things that are away from our phone equally as, you know, enjoyable and engaging, that match up with that, again, that reward, that dopamine effect that we're getting.
Yeah.
But and then I guess it goes into the validation stuff we were talking about, and how, you know, do we counter that need for high self-esteem with self-compassion and saying, you know what, actually, I'm okay. But
I think it's hard to do that as an adult, isn't it? But I think, you know, when thinking about adults, thinking about parents, if you can do that for yourself and model that to your child, but also like with children, if you say no phones or no screens or no video games or whatever, no social media, you need to provide them with something else.
Yeah.
Children, unfortunately, don't know how to play as easily as they did. Like if we think about 30 odd years ago, for us, like we didn't have phones, whereas like someone as young, you know, I was FaceTiming a friend of a baby, and a 6-month-old baby, and the baby was like trying to grab the phone because that's what they're used to, which is kind of cute, but also like it shows the difference in that generation. But you need to provide your child with something else, because a bit like we were saying, you need to find that joy. No point saying like, oh, no video games, no social media, no tech, just sit there. Like what they're going to do, they're not going to find the joy. They're not going to realise that actually they can have joy by playing football with dad, or whatever, walking the dog together, or watching a film together, or playing a game of Uno, or whatever it might be. They have to be told where they can find those joy in other ways. And I really wonder if like parents and just adults in general, like we actually know that, like we're actually educated on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's it. It's what are we substituting it for? Because again, you know, it's that awareness of 2 minutes can turn into 2 hours of scrolling. And when are we noticing that, oh, something here needs to change? So I agree. It's replacing these activities for something more engaging, but again, getting it equally as engaging and as social media is, because the vast amount of information. You know, 1 minute you could be watching like a funny animal video, and then you could be watching, you know, I don't know, something roller coasters or something, whatever. Like, I don't know, like the reinforcement that we get is so exciting, and we're on our edge. It's how do we match that then in real life?
How do we? That's what I'm trying to think, you know, like, and we, you know, we have that awareness of that. We know that. Yeah. We know, you know, I went away on the weekend to a really nice countryside, gorgeous lodge type thing. And I said to my husband, I was like, we're not on our phones. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I obviously looked at it. Like, it was my birthday. I had a few birthday messages to reply to. But at the same time, like, I was like, I'm not going to sit here in this gorgeous countryside with a hot tub, with a barbecue, with, you know, some drinks and some food and all of this, and sit like that. Like, what's the point? And actually, when you can make that intentional decision, that was it. It had to be intentional. Yeah. It had to be no. And if we caught each other on it, be like, you're scrolling off, you know? And, you know, once you can make that intentional decision, you then find that joy. Yeah. And again, you've got to do that with children. You've got to do that with children. You've got to, you know, create that culture as a family, I think, is what we're talking about. Yeah. That when we go on holiday, this is what we do. Or, you know, I mean, like I said, we were at these lodges, and there was a family in like a bigger one. And my husband said, he said, gosh, those kids must be bored. Like, there's nothing here for them. And I was like, yeah, but like, think about all the joy they could be having. And look, they might have been scrolling on their phone, but I could hear them screaming, jumping in and out of the hot tub. Probably shouldn't have done it, but you know, all of those sorts of things. And I sort of said to him, I said, this is the best place for them. Somewhere where the signal was a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
You know, signal's a bit dodgy. They're forced to go for a walk. They're forced to get in a hot tub. There's nothing to do apart from play board games.
Yeah.
And there's an intentional decision made by their parents that we're going to spend 2 nights, 3 nights, however long they were there for, just all together.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
needing that.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to an intentional decision. You're creating that culture in your home, whether you're just adults, whether you're family, whatever. It's hard though.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think it's intentional and it's that awareness. And I wonder which one, you know, which comes first, the awareness or intention or vice versa, or they're interrelated. But I guess it starts with the adults and noticing that discomfort in a mindful way, like, oh, something here, and you know, I'm noticing it, but I'm not embodying it fully. And I guess that relates to concepts that I work with, you know, of burnout and stress and work stress, and that it's does that relate to the that constantly having to be online, you know, mentality. So yeah, the intention behind it and noticing, is this healthy for me? Is it healthy for my family? So yeah, and I wonder, like, things like screen time apps. I think they, you know, when it tells you, I know on the iPhone it does. I guess that's a nice metric of things.
Yeah, which is normally alarming.
Yeah.
But it does help people educate themselves, because you do look and they're like, whoa, I've actually spent that amount of time on social today. Like, what could I have done in that time? Like, you know, oh, I didn't have time to go and do a workout. You spent 2 hours scrolling on Instagram. Like, there was time, you know. So it is educational. But I'm thinking about how maybe, I think there's a lot of conversation around this at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot around this. There's a lot of programs. You know, we know there was obviously the big Netflix Adolescents, like that was a lot around social media and all that sort of stuff. You know, there's so many schools going phone free. There's so much conversation about it. And I think for some parents, it's actually hard to understand why. And that's not their fault. Yeah. There's still, you know, people that are becoming parents who it wasn't in their generation to grow up with a phone. Yeah. So it's about them educating. It's about them listening to people like us talking about it, but also asking their child, looking at their own behaviour, but also asking their child, like, why are you using social media? How do you feel when you look at that? And having those conversations, educating your child with them, like, how do you feel when you're looking at that picture of that model? Or how do you feel, you know, when you're looking at that person who is doing the thing that you really want to be able to do and you can't do it?
Yeah.
Or, you know, what are you gaining from following this account? You know, have those conversations together, because there's so much that you can learn, and they can learn from you. You know, let them ask the questions. Yeah. Like, well, Mum, why do you follow it? Yeah. Why are you looking at that picture of so-and-so?
Yeah.
Catch you out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was thinking the same. Again, it's quite restorative for an adult and as well for them to reflect. Because I know a lot of my friends are kind of like deleting accounts, deleting Instagram. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't really serve anything. You know, there's other ways of, you know, growing your business or whatever it is, other ways of connection. I know personally for me, if I communicate with people, it's often over WhatsApp or phone call or real life. Yeah. And I think that, again, it's coming to that, what you want to share, how authentic you want to be. But again, noticing, what is this serving me? And why? And I guess that's really, really interesting. Those really rich conversations and that dialogue and reflection between adult and children and families. Yeah.
Your thoughts are around kind of real life. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is some benefits to, you know, I think we're talking obviously quite negatively about social media, but there is some benefits.
Definitely.
We both use it for our business. Yeah. We can connect with others. You know, I spoke to my friend in Australia yesterday. I wouldn't have been able to do that and see her baby if I wasn't on FaceTime. You know, there is lots and lots of benefits. But what I am passionate about when I'm working with young children is it can't replace the benefits of the real world. Yeah. It can't replace the real world social connection and what it's like to actually go and see someone, you know. And that's the bit that kind of concerns me is, and maybe the pandemic did drive this quite a lot. You know, we're sat here today doing a podcast together, but this is an example. Like, what about people? There's so many people now that podcasts online together. You know, it's just an example. And obviously that has its benefits. You can get two people from different ends of the country without travelling. But also, like, they haven't got this. They haven't got that kind of connection with someone, talking to someone, seeing someone, making a cup of coffee for someone, whatever. Yeah, those are the things that I fear as adults we're beginning to miss. Yeah. And definitely the children generation are not doing it. They're not doing it. There's so much to it. There's, you know, I know that there's a lot around kind of, the streets are safe for us and all this sort of stuff. There's so much to it. I'm not going to sit here and say that any parent should let their children go out and play football. Some of them don't think they should. Yeah. But, you know, if we think back to like when we were growing up, boys were kicking footballs in the streets, or girls, everyone was kicking footballs in the streets. I was roller skating up and down the street with my friend, a certain limit where we were allowed to go. But I wasn't just sat in my phone all summer holidays in my room. I was seeing people and they're losing that, and it just concerns me.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I think it's what you were mentioning there. There's lots of benefits of social media. It's so rich, it's so great, great for connection. And how I see it from the adult perspective is it serving, and is it making you feel happier? Is it creating the life that you want to create? I really work on noticing when things are going better in your life. So is it making you feel better? And again, it comes down to that intentional. Is it needed? And because I've noticed people, it depends either, you know, there's more use of stories than there are posts. Yeah. So the posts are the best bits of life, and then the stories, again, are the best bits. So it's like everything's the best. And I think that that's something that, it's being intentional about even what young people are seeing, and is it serving? Is it healthy for my mental health and how I feel and my self-esteem? And it comes back down to those, what we were speaking about before. But yeah, and again, like what we said, I guess putting our phone down and picking our life up and getting outside, enjoying different activities. But yeah, it seems like it's, how do we create that boundary?
So yeah, there's actually so much we could keep talking about it. But why don't we maybe like put some takeaway points? Why don't you maybe think about things that adults can do to help them be a bit more boundary to their social media?
So what comes to mind straight away is kind of practical things and more emotional based things. So practical, laptop boundaries. As soon as you finish, put it away. Maybe, you know, if you've got a desk set up at home, maybe just put the laptop down, put it away, out of sight, out of mind, that whole thing. Phone boundaries, maybe in the evening, a lot of, whether it's the iPad, the phone, moving it away from the bedside or near where you're going to sleep. So you've just got that physical kind of boundary from it. If you do find that it is hard and it is something that is useful for you, you know, that scrolling or maybe the phone in the evenings, the only time you can use it, maybe just noticing if it's useful for you, and then maybe changing that or changing the increments. So maybe if it's you spend an hour at night time on your phone, maybe do 55 minutes one day, 5 minutes reading a book or a new hobby, whatever. And then you could change it incrementally. So I'm all about being kind to yourself. Like, you don't need to get rid of it. It's just managing it effectively. Other practical things I'd say for me, I find useful is no notifications. We were chatting earlier about like maybe do not disturb at certain points or flight mode. But I really like the whole archiving chats. So maybe the people that you want to or you need to speak to on a daily basis, or maybe there's some chats that you can just catch up to later in the week, so that avoids that urgency culture. I know I used to do that when I was a lot younger. I used to reply imminently. And now I've noticed, as my life demands are increasing, it's gone to like days to even weeks sometimes. And I think it's healthy because, you know, if you're friends, if you've got that good, you know, relationship, they'll understand, and you'll just say sorry or whatever. So again, it ties in quite well with the emotional stuff then, is being really mindful of the counts that you follow on social media. Again, if it's just not aligning or you find some discomfort, maybe just again, maybe mute or delete. But yeah, muting I find is really useful. Sometimes if there's, you know, close family or friends that maybe you don't want to unfollow them, but maybe you just don't really want to see that. Maybe, you know, we're all at different phases and stages of our lives. We're all managing different things. but sometimes maybe we just don't want to see that or see somebody's fifth holiday of the year if we're like, you know, in a different phase of our life. I think just noticing and, you know, being kind to ourselves. And again, that could be the same for other accounts. Just unfollowing things that just don't resonate and maybe create any discomfort. But again, just really tapping into your authenticity and knowing that you're so wonderful as you know, in terms of the likes and the validation, just being really kind to yourself. Or if you want to post something, maybe just turn the app off, don't have notifications on, just post it, leave it, so you've got that detachment straight away. But yeah, do you think they relate to children and young people, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some things that really overlap there. I mean, when you were saying about kind of just putting things away, I think that's the same with young people, but you might have to sort of do it for them. So kind of like tech curfews, so, you know, but something not allowed at bedtime or whatever. But I think it's also about kind of, you know, kind of talk about it, make that plan together as a family. It doesn't have to be no phone past 9 and that is it, and your child kind of have that time where they get annoyed about that every night. Decide together, talk to each other about it. Why do you think I don't want you to have your phone at night? It's because you won't sleep. And if you don't sleep, how are you going to feel the next day? You know, those sorts of things. So come together as a family, put in that curfew, that tech boundary, that social media boundary together. Make those decisions together, so you're empowering your child to be part of that decision as well. You know, we spent quite a lot of time talking about like role models. So, you know, use all those things that you just said as an adult to be boundaried about your phone, and then lead by example. So then, you know, do those things, show your child that you're doing them. And, you know, children pick it up. Oh, mum's phone's not there at dinner time, or dad didn't take his phone when we went for a walk today. He actually listened to me. So lead by that example. And, you know, following on from what we just said about kind of, you know, dad didn't take his phone when he went on a walk with me today. It's all about being present with your child in it. You do not want children to think that your phone is more important than them. Yeah. So do, you know, make sure that when you're listening to your child, you're listening to them. If you need to finish something for work or on social media or whatever, you're responding to something, just say, give me 2 minutes and I'll be with you. That's absolutely fine. But just be present for them when you can be present for them. Yeah, so be present, lead by example, make decisions all together, talk to your children, understand what they're using. You know, we haven't gone into kind of safety and all that. I didn't really want to go into all that today, but have conversations. What are they looking at? Be as open as you can about it, because they might actually be looking at something that makes them feel really good and you want to like help them look at that more. Or I don't know, maybe they're learning how to play guitar or something on social media, and that's great, go for it, you know. So yeah, talking there really as well. Did you have any like final thoughts?
I think they sound really great. Yeah. When you mentioned that, what came to mind, I think again, engaging maybe in digital detoxes together. When maybe when you're going on a family trip, just being like, no phone policy. Really, you know, let's just enjoy the moment. Yeah. It's like what you mentioned when you went away to the countryside, and just really immersing yourself in the beauty around. Yeah. And I guess it's easier now with the weather getting better and everything. So just being kind to ourselves in that sense. But yeah, just noticing, you know, as adults, as young people, be mindful of our use and the
effect it's having on us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that was super interesting.
Just say like, good.
Well, thank you so much for listening. It's been Luisa and Joyti exploring social media, kind of boundary setting, validation, and just practical tips around trying to have a really great relationship with social media, online and offline.